For tens of millions of people around the world, a prosthetic limb is literally the key to living an independent life. But here's the shocking part. For almost all of them, up to 95%, that key is completely out of reach. So in this explainer, we're going to dig into why this huge gap exists and how a really revolutionary technology might just be the thing to finally close it.
All right, so first up, we're talking about a real crisis of access. And let's be clear, this isn't some niche issue that only affects a handful of people. No, what we're looking at is a global health crisis on a scale that's honestly kind of hard to wrap your head around. 40 million. Just let that number sink in for a second. That is the staggering number of people right now who need a prosthetic or an orthotic device. To put that into perspective for you, that's more than the entire population of Canada, an entire country's worth of people, all waiting for a tool that could completely change their lives.
Okay, but here's where the number goes from big to just truly shocking. This chart shows what we call the access gap. The World Health Organization estimates that only 5 to 15%, that's it, of those 40 million people actually get the help they need. That means as many as 95% are just left behind. So the big question has to be, why?
Well, to answer that, we can't just look at the big global numbers. We need to zoom in. We need to go to a place where these challenges aren't just statistics, they're a daily reality. So, we're going to head to the Eastern Cape province of South Africa to see exactly how this crisis plays out on the ground. Right, the Eastern Cape. It really is like a perfect snapshot of the entire global problem. It's one of the country's poorest and most rural provinces, and all the systemic barriers to getting prosthetic care, they all come together here to create this massive bottleneck that just traps people in this endless cycle of waiting.
So what's actually causing this bottleneck? Well, it's not just one thing. Research shows it's a perfect storm of 5 interconnected issues. You've got budget problems and broken supply chains, not enough trained people, a huge amount of unrecorded demand, and massive geographical hurdles. It's like this complex web of problems that just leaves patients completely stranded.
And this image, wow, it just perfectly captures one of the biggest hurdles: geography. Think about this. For the entire huge Eastern Cape province, there are only 3 service centers. Just 3. So if you live in a remote village, getting help means a journey of hundreds of kilometers, often on really bad roads. For a lot of people, that trip it's physically and financially impossible.
And this isn't just an inconvenience. This has a real devastating human cost. This table comes from a local study and it shows the reality for just 4 people. Just look at these waiting times: 10 months, 2 years, 3 years, even 6 years. Can you even imagine that? Waiting 6 years for the kind of mobility that so many of us just take for granted every single day.
And listen to this quote from a prosthetist, someone who's right there in the thick of it. They explain the knock-on effects. Patients have to travel so far that they have to pay for a place to stay, which costs a ton of money they often don't have. So what happens? Crucial parts of their care, like gait training, learning to actually walk with the new limb, get cut short because they have to rush back home. The quality of care is literally compromised by how hard it is to get there.
So when you're faced with a problem this complex, this deeply rooted in the system, it's really easy to feel like it's just unsolvable. But this is where the story takes a really exciting turn. It's all thanks to a remarkable innovation that could completely rewrite the rules of the game.
And that brings us to the million-dollar question, right? With all these barriers, the distance, the cost, the time, the lack of specialists, how on earth can you transform the system? Well, maybe the answer isn't about trying to patch up the old broken system. Maybe it's about building an entirely new one. And that's where 3D printing comes in. Now, you've probably heard of it, but it's basically a process that builds things up, layer by tiny layer, from a digital design. But this isn't just a cool new way to make stuff, it's a completely new way to deliver care. It makes things rapid, low cost, and this is the absolute game changer, it allows for remote production.
So let's explore how this technology can help print a totally new reality. We're going to see exactly how it goes head-to-head with those barriers we just talked about and how it offers real, practical solutions.
This comparison just lays it all out perfectly. The old way, we're talking months of work and multiple trips to a clinic for fittings. The new way, with 3D printing, the production time gets slashed from months down to mere hours. Fittings can be done with a simple remote scan, and the cost, it plummets.
This isn't just an improvement, it's a fundamental shift in how everything works.
The whole process just gets turned on its head. It's really just 3 steps. First, you scan the patient with a simple handheld device. You could even do it from their home. Second, that digital file gets sent off to a professional designer who could be literally anywhere in the world. And third, the final design gets printed right there, locally, close to the person who needs it. It takes the production and brings it to the patient, not the other way around.
And look, this isn't just some pie-in-the-sky theory. A pilot project in rural Sierra Leone actually put this exact model to the test. They gave a group of people these low-cost, 3D printed prosthetics, and the results were amazing. 6 weeks into the study, every single participant was still wearing and walking with their new device. That's real-world proof that this model can work in the very places that need it the most.
Okay, but as amazing and as promising as this technology is, it's not a magic wand. It's not a silver bullet. A true transformation, that takes more than just a fancy new printer. It forces us to rethink the entire system of care that's built around the patient.
And this quote from a prosthetist really brings us back down to earth. They say, "The infrastructure in this country is not suitable for prosthetics. There is no way to escape the mud." And that just says it all, doesn't it? You can design the most high-tech prosthetic imaginable, but if a person has to walk on muddy, unpaved roads every day, that device has to be tough enough for the job. The technology has to fit the reality on the ground.
So in the end, for this to really work, it needs a whole system approach. The printer is just one piece of the puzzle. You also need better health education and awareness. You need research into materials that are both sustainable and affordable. You need open source platforms so people can share designs freely. And critically, you need to integrate this new tech into the health systems that are already there. So that's where we're left. The technology to fix this massive crisis of access? It's here. It's real. It's not science fiction anymore. The biggest question now is whether our health systems are ready for it. We can literally print the future of prosthetics, but are we actually ready to build the world that's needed to support it?